Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of the Transformation Playbook with Akin. Well, I'm sure you were tremendously blessed on the last episode and it was added a lot of value to your life. You remember the compelling story of my episode in college and how I ended up at the hospital. I have a quick question for your reflection today. Do you often find yourself striving to be a better person than you used to be? Or do you feel like your life is spiraling down in the wrong direction? Or do you feel like you're drifting? And how can you move forward from where you are? Well, in today's episode, we'll be discussing major keys to bouncing back from setbacks that will help you. And that is resetting your mindset, thinking for a change. Well, if you remember from the last episode, I was talking about how I ended up in the hospital. And I also had a roommate in my hospital, also bundled up and bandaged up. And he told me his story and how he was innocently attacked as well. And we shared our experiences together, only for us to find out at one point when we were sleeping, there was chaos in the hospital again. All from the lobby area, we could hear noises, people running helter-skelter. We could hear the nurses screaming. And we had no clue of what was going on. But unknowingly to me, he probably understood what was going on, because by the time I looked to my side, he was nowhere to be found. I was confused, not knowing what was happening, trying to figure out how did he get out of the room. Well, I looked to my left and saw that the window was open, so he must have jumped from the floor, and we were probably about 3-4 floors up. Anyways, the chaos continued, only for me to start hearing loud noises, them trying to get in. But honestly speaking, how they didn't get into the room, I cannot explain. It must have been my creator God who had a protective plan for me. But after the chaos had died down, guess what? Some police officers came into the room to interrogate me and ask me if I knew anything about what was happening. And so I shared my information, all the information I knew, at least to the best of my understanding. And they asked me about my roommate. I told them everything that I understood till then. Unfortunately for me then, they thought I was an accomplice with him. But then in my conversations with the police officers, I realized that the people that came into the hospital actually came in trying to attack the person who was in my room with me. That was really eye-opening for me. You can imagine the trauma that I had to go through on something that I had no clue about. So I was thrown into confusion. And so when I got discharged from the hospital, I was still invited down to the police station to answer some further questions. Meanwhile, remember, the school were doing their own investigations as well. And so my name happened to come up on the list of those who needed to face panel in order for them to get closure on what was really happening on campus. At this point, I was thrown into all manner of confusion. And the one thing that kept crossing my mind was that, where were my friends? No one was anywhere to be found. I was only surrounded by my loved ones, my mom, my dad, my siblings. And the extended family had distanced themselves as well, because all this information was on the news. It had brought shame, it had brought reproach to my family. Now the question is, where do I go from here? Where do I start from? So I had choices to make. What am I going to do? And so that brings me to today's episode. Are you one person that sets your mind on limitations, or are you a person that sets your mind on possibilities? And I'll tell you why that's very, very important today. And that's why I asked that question. Do you find yourself striving to be a better person than you used to be? Do you find yourself drifting and you're wondering how can you shift forward? Do you find yourself in a hopeless situation? Yes, I'm talking to you, that individual. I'm talking to you, that leader in that executive company. I'm talking to you, leaders in charge of government agencies. Are there situations that seem hopeless that you think you can't come out from, just like mine? Well, resetting your mindset and thinking for a change, having a mindset set on possibilities rather than limitations is one step. Actually, I really believe is the first step in your journey of transformation. And so we all have traits, we all have tendencies, we all have trends based on our mindsets that we have developed. Either we have been developed that way or we were molded that way based on our environment and how we were brought up. So sometimes our minds are set in ways that serve us well, and sometimes they're set in ways that don't serve us well. So it's crucial to recognize that our mindsets can either silently motivate us or it can be a tool to imprison us in procrastination. Your mindsets are actually the barriers between your success and your failure. And so evaluating your mindset is vital because wherever your mind is set, your life will follow. Just like my situation in college. After being invited down to the station, after not seeing any of my friends around, I had to evaluate my mindset. The mindset that causes a problem cannot be the same mindset that fixes it. I had to learn that very quickly. Because it was the way I was thinking that drove my actions to hang with the wrong crew, expecting favorable results. And see where it had gotten me. It had brought shame, it had brought reproach, it had hindered my education, it had made my dream a nightmare. And so whether you're walking that individual walk towards striving towards your destiny, or you're influencing your leader within your company, your business, or you're that leader that has been given the responsibility to serve the people by serving your nation, your mindset is critical to you achieving your set goals. And so, evaluating your mindset from time to time is extremely critical. It reminds me about when I used to play PS4 game, that there is a time where the game wasn't favorable. The console was beating me. And I'll usually go back, or I find that, the console froze at one point, and I'll go back to the equipment and hit the reset button so we can start all over again. The system can refresh itself. So a mindset needs to be refocused on possibilities rather than limitations. In my situation there, it seemed like there was no hope. I was surrounded with all manners of limitations. Somebody watching is probably saying, what were my limitations? First, I didn't know if I was going to go back to school. Second, I brought shame and reproach to my family. Thirdly, I didn't know if I was going to be arrested. And so there was so much. Where do I start from? How do I continue my journey? So remember, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. That's how powerful a mindset is. Like I said earlier, whether it's your individual journey, whether it's in your executive position, you leading people, or the leaders serving a nation, wherever your mind is set at, your life would follow. Wherever your mind is set at, the people you are leading will follow. And so if your mind is set on corruption, that's what you will get in return as leaders of nations. As leaders, executive leaders in companies, if your mind is set on being served rather than you serving, those are the results you will achieve. But find yourself seeking to bounce back from different situations. There's no situation that cannot be turned around, but it starts with the mindset. So refuse to settle with limitations. Focus on possibilities. And for leaders out there, most of the things I hear from time to time is, oh, you just don't understand the environment. This situation is not possible. It has been like that for years. But that's why the mindset is important. Is your mindset set on possibilities, or is your mindset set on limitations? So let's reflect for a moment. Think about a clock. If a clock ever goes wrong or it gets stuck for any reason, it's gonna need a reset. If it doesn't get updated, that time will always stay outdated. And the world will not wait. The world will keep moving, but then the clock is outdated. And so like it is with the clock, so it is with our mindset. So this brings me to a very important insight I got from a man called Paul in the scripture, Romans chapter 12, verse 2. He said, do not be conformed by the things of the world, but let your mind be transformed. All right. And so this means if anything is supposed to happen for you individually or in your company, it is what happens in the realms of your mind that determines what will happen in reality. You know what I've found with people, with executives, with leaders? We become professional proclaimers, right? This means proclaiming the promises. For Christians, you hear, I'm more than a conqueror. I'm the head, but not the tail. You see, the testing ground is your mind. So the shift starts here. You can proclaim change, but without changing your mind, those proclamations just remain simply words without proof. And so if you're tired of playing games, or you're tired of taking risks with your life or with your dreams, with your visions, then there are certain areas you need to upgrade. Remember I said, a mind that is not updated is soon bound to be outdated. And so if we are to reset our minds effectively for change, if we are to think effectively for change, there are certain areas that we need to upgrade. And the first area that you need to upgrade is your information. It's your information. What information is fueling your decisions? What information is fueling your decisions? In my example, when I was in college, it was the information that I was getting from my friends. No one can shake us. No one can tear us down. We are living the life. We can conquer any trouble that comes our way. We don't have to go to class. We don't have to be obedient to the laws, to the principles. In fact, we did everything contrary. But what was my result? All right. So what information is fueling your decision? Critically ask yourself that question in your individual life. In your decisions as leaders within your company. In your decisions as leaders serving your nation. What are the quality of information that are driving your decisions? Because that is what would mold your way of thinking. That's what will mold your mindset. And wherever your mind is set, your life or your results will follow. And so you have to update your information. When I found myself in that situation that I was telling you about, I was in the police station. I didn't know if I was going to school. I was going to be called back to school. The shame and the reproach from my family. I had to start searching for information. I had a choice. I could have just sat down there and let the boat sink. But I made a choice that something had to change. And I started talking to people. I started reading books. And for me on my personal journey, I had to connect back with my own creator. What was the way forward? What are the possibilities? I didn't want to focus on the limitations. Yes, I knew what the limitations were. I remember one lady saying they were just going to kill us. They were going to put us in front of firing squad and be shot. I remember that clearly. But I didn't focus on limitations. I didn't focus on negative energy. I was hungry for possibilities. And that led me to read books, to do research on what my options were. Did I need to relocate? Did I need to start afresh? If I was to start afresh, where do I start from? What do I need to put in place? Those begin to fuel your actions. And so you must update your information. It's critical. I remember a woman who was looking for healing in the time of Jesus. And she heard Jesus was in town. She didn't even meet him. She only held his garment and received her healing. That means she got reliable information that he was in town. There was another blind man that was looking for him, missed him on his way in, but was determined that he wasn't going to miss him on the way out. He got reliable information. The quality of your information determines the quality of your decisions. And the quality of your decisions determine the quality of the steps that you take. And so, whatever your information is, remember, I said a mindset that caused the problem cannot be the same mindset that solves that problem. So something needs to change. You have to update your information. Number 2, you have to update your execution, your implementation. Just the proclamation of change alone will not bring about change. You have to take action. You have to execute. There's a famous saying that says, people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. But even information or knowledge without implementation is still ignorance. So don't just be a hearer of the information, put it to work. And so you have to update your execution. When I started understanding the actions I needed to take, the principles that were going to work, one of them was to dissociate myself from my friends, find myself new friends, new circles, look for mentors. These were decisions I had to make, but I had to take the steps. And so in your individual life, no matter wherever you find yourself in, the boat you're in, on your journey, after gathering some information, you don't have to fully gather everything, but begin to take action. Begin to take action. The first step I had to do was take a little time to myself, dissociate myself from my friends. It gave me time to think. It gave me time to reflect. It gave me time to meditate. So whether you're a leader in that company, you don't know the way forward, how to solve that problem, the limitations hindering you from scaling to the next level. After gathering the information required, how do I get from this point to this point? It's time to implement. It's time to put it to work.